I looked over my shoulder to see if Jane had heard him over the din of the crowd, but she was too absorbed in searching for John. "What are you doing here, George?" I demanded, "and how did you recognize me?" "To answer your first question," George said, "I am here on orders, as are several others of my men. It is a public ball, if I'm not mistaken. And as for your second question, I recognized your very distinct pout, which over the past week I have come to know well." "I do not have a pout." He gazed at the crowds below. "You do, but that's not the really important thing at the moment. What is important is if Timothy is going to show his face tonight. My instinct tells me that he will." My laughter startled him. "You can't honestly believe I said that Timothy is anywhere near this vicinity, can you?" "Yes, actually I do. Your little speech the other day didn't fool me." "What little speech?" "Oh, you know, the one where you tried to make me believe that Timothy was the last kind of man to take risks. As if I didn't know that man myself by now. Only I hope you were correct on one point. What was the expression you used? Having his ducks in a row? Well, unless I missed my mark, he's done his best to get those ducks lined up precisely in order to make his move tonight. He and his family are preparing to proclaim their loyalty for Prince Frederick, and this ball was calculated to do just that. They hope to start a movement here in the East, but it will never go farther than this province. Sir John Robert might have sway in this little corner of the world, but it won't be enough to start a coup." "Oh, George," I said, shaking my head, "I'm afraid you're in for a profound disappointment." He eyed me through his mask, and for a brief moment I thought I recognized pity. "Perhaps it is you who will be disappointed tonight. Will you still think so highly of him when you are proved wrong?" "Lisbette," Jane said, taking my arm, "Aunt Geraldine wants us." It was as she said. Aunt Geraldine was beckoning to us from the receiving line down below. I tapped his arm with my fan. "Good luck, George. I'm afraid you're going to need it." Jane and I joined our family just as they reached Sir John Robert and Lady Caroline. As hosts, none of them wore masks, and I was relieved to see Thomas standing alongside his parents. I gripped his hand. "Thomas, what happened last night?" He beamed at me. "Do you think I'll tell you here, stupid?" "But it was you they caught last—" "Hush, I'll tell you later if you like, but not now. Let's just leave it that I'm now the unequivocal champion of fox and hounds." "Well done." Lady Caroline was looking ravishing in a dress of patriotic red with a white plume feather. In the past 2 days, her appearance had been strained with worry, but tonight she was glowing. Slightly piqued that she could be so happy when my betrothal to her son was about to end, my own greeting was perhaps more formal than it might have been. However, as soon as I took her hand, she whispered to me, "Fair warning for you, dear. John Robert has been moping around all day. You know how he can be." I sighed. I felt like a criminal around him after last night. I never saw him so disappointed. Then, because I'm hopelessly weak, I whispered, "I don't suppose your son left any message for me." She betrayed a flicker of surprise. "Why, no. Did he tell you he would?" I shook my head. "No, but there were some things left unsaid." I was acting like a lovesick schoolgirl, and I despised myself, but there was nothing to be done about it. Her knowing eyes darted to the crowd of people around me. "Not here, my dear. There are too many guests watching us. No matter how the evening ends, don't give the gossips any more fodder than they already have. I'll never forgive you if you do," she ended with a smile. "I shouldn't have come." "But of course you should have come. I'm depending upon you to help lead in the dancing." Lady Caroline never coddled me. Her cure was always good common sense. People thought that Timothy took after his father, which was true in many ways, but when it came to level-headed stoicism, no one but his mother could be credited. I moved down the line, and Sir John Robert met me with mournful eyes. "I spoke to Glynis Burnside not 10 minutes ago. She's determined to tell every person in this room that you're to be her daughter-in-law by Solstice Eve." "Never mind," I said. "Tonight isn't about the Burnsides. Tonight is about showing these Westies how the Eastons ring in the new king." I lowered my voice. "Did you know some of the soldiers have traded their uniforms for party gear?" "No, but I suspected. How did you discover it?" I lowered my voice. "Captain Hargrove spoke to me just now. He's sure Timothy is here tonight, and that you're going to announce your loyalty to Prince Frederick." If anything could have made him forget his woes, this was it. His hearty laughter carried across the room, and every eye turned our way. Uncle William, who was lingering close by, said severely, "Come, Lisbette, you're holding up the line." In the ballroom, the dancing had already started, and despite my depression, I felt an excitement in the air when I saw so many strangers mingling and moving about the room. There was such a variety of masks and costumes that it was impossible to guess at first glance who was who. Lawrence immediately disappeared, but the rest of us seated ourselves opposite the doors where we had the best view of the dancing. "William, you must not leave us yet," Aunt Geraldine said. "There's no telling who might come and ask the girls to dance." "Never fear," was my uncle's reply. "I shall not let any of my nieces dance with any man unless he identifies himself first." Jane bit her lip and started blinking hard. "Ah," said my uncle as he surveyed the crowd under the glow of countless candles. "Here is someone who Lisbette will want to include on her dance card." I followed his gaze and saw Tory. The mask he wore could not cover his bad skin nor his prominent jaw. Thankfully he had not yet seen us. Aunt Geraldine, I said, my hem is torn. I'm going back to the cloakroom to see if it can be fixed. That was very clumsy of you, but go quickly before anyone notices, and please don't dawdle on the way back. May I go? Jane started to say. No, Aunt Geraldine said shortly. If you go with Lisbette, we won't see either of you until midnight. I know you girls. I hated to leave Jane, but I could not face Tori. I hurried across the room and was nearly to the doors when I came face to face with Agent Saltz. The only disguise he wore was a narrow mask across his eyes, as if to proclaim that he couldn't care less who knew his identity. Not that he would have been able to hide it very well anyway. His height and mustache made it obvious who he was. A good evening to you, Miss Blackwood. Forgive me. I know I should pretend not to know you, but you do have a very distinctive mouth, if you'll forgive me for saying. He turned around and motioned to the room. Very charming party, isn't it? I found myself fascinated by his mustache. He had oiled it, so that it was unnaturally shiny, and a little of the shine had been smudged onto his lip, making it look as if he'd done a clumsy job of applying lip gloss. Above to the left, his cheek was red with abrasions. Over his eyebrow was a bright red cut stitched with black thread. The whole effect was that of a harlequin who was only half done up, only not the kind one was inclined to laugh at. This, coupled with the energetic music playing in the background, made the whole meeting a bit surreal. After all, the last time I had seen him, he had been lying unconscious on the ground. The fact that he was here at this party tonight spoke much about his fortitude and determination. I was familiar with such determination. It was the kind that frightened me. Very charming, I replied, wishing suddenly that I hadn't left my family. Despite the myriad of people around us, I felt suddenly very alone. Agent Saltz was all politeness and polish, but it occurred to me now that this was a man who was capable of murder. I'm not sure how I knew it, but underneath his smooth exterior, I sensed the same cold callousness that I had seen so recently in Oswald and Clive. Agent Saltz might be cleaner and more genteel, but he was the same caliber of man.